Hey guys, happy Tuesday. Brian Davis here from Spark Rental along with Deni.
Hi, everyone.
And we are so glad you guys are joining us today. So last week, Deni spoke with Jen Smith from Modern Frugality about how to reach financial independence through frugality. Surprise, surprise. I was actually vacationing last week. I was in the Pantanal seeing wildlife with my wife and daughter, which was fun. So today
In a
we're
frugal way. Just kidding.
Well, we live a pretty frugal lifestyle. We live entirely on my wife's income and benefits, which are not huge, by the way. At least the income is not huge. The benefits are pretty nice. We get free housing, uh, and we don't have to. We live in a place where we don't need a car, so we don't own a car. It's great. Um, so today, Denny and I are talking about should investors bother to pay a realtor or when they go to sell a property, or should they use for sale by owner, given all the tools that are available to real estate investors nowadays and homeowners for that matter.
Right.
The Zillows and Trulias and Realtor.com and all of these tools and services, and you can pay a flat fee MLS listing, so your property will be listed on the MLS. So are realtors dinosaurs in today's world, especially for investors, who are a little bit savvier about real estate? Now,
Right.
Deni is a realtor, so A, she's
I
an expert. B, there might
could
be a
be a little
conflict of interest.
biased.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
little bit of bias here, but we're going to dive in here because we hear a lot of investors ask this question, like, should I bother paying 6%, 7%, sometimes even 8% in realtor commissions? And sometimes we're talking about properties that are worth, two, three, four, five, $600,000. So 7% realtor's commission on a $500,000 property is a lot of money. So with that being said, as you guys join us, let us know where you're tuning in from. Fire questions at us. This is an interactive podcast and video broadcast. So this is not just us talking at you. Please, jump in and get your feet wet with us. So let's start this off, Deni, by talking about what are the pros of using a realtor? What are some of the advantages of paying a realtor in today's world?
Well, I think the one of the top reasons is time. It saves you time from doing a lot of the different parts of a sale or a purchase, so or a rental, and time. I'm older now, so time means a lot to me, and I think that it- no matter how old you are, time is important, and
Most valuable asset.
that's yeah,
It's the only
really
asset you have that's not renewable. You can
right,
always make more money. You can't get more time.
exactly. So that's a big one. Um, their experience, they know how to market, place ads. Hopefully, you have somebody who's very well that they just know the location. You'd be surprised at somebody who might live in a location but don't know all the aspects of that, where a realtor will know some of the nuances that maybe somebody who just lives there or invests there may not. Um,
Yeah, that neighborhood level expertise
right.
can really be invaluable when you go to market a property. Um, and just to expand on that for a minute, sometimes realtors do bring a level of marketing expertise, such as knowing how to shoot properties well,
Hmm.
with a professional camera, great, like a professional grade camera. They'll come in, they'll get the lighting exactly right. Then maybe they'll even stage it. But they will take way better marketing photos than you probably will.
Right.
So just to give one really quick and concrete example of how that marketing expertise can come into play.
They also will be meeting prospects. So that's, again, saving you time. You don't have to go out and constantly show people. And that's time consuming, answering questions and all of that. A big one, I think, is they take the emotional out of it because as much as we try not to, a lot of us, when we're selling our own, renting our own, um, or buying, we get very emotionally involved in it, and very principled. So, and that takes away from the bottom line, which is ideally what we're all looking for here. So having a realtor in the midst, a property manager or somebody who is helping you with this is going to take that emotional aspect out of this.
Yeah,
Um,
emotions have no place in investments. Seriously. I mean, emotions are the enemy of investing, both on
right.
the buying side and on the selling side. Way too many, fear and greed, right? That's what everyone talks about in investing. And if you let fear or greed drive your investing decisions, you will underperform the market.
And
So
renting. I think that's one of the toughest parts of rent when you're renting out your property. You hear somebody's story and you're like, oh,
you're
maybe
talking
I'll
about
try
managing
that.
tenants.
Right. Or just finding a tenant for a property because realtors can help do that. So, I mean, there's yeah, that can really be an issue. And like Brian was saying earlier, most real estate agents will have a fairly good network of stagers and photographers, even maintenance contractors and things like that to get your house, showable, and things like that. Or even if you buy a flipper, so like a house that needs to be flipped, um, if they have those kind of resources in their network, that's helpful to you. Um, Go ahead. Were you going to say something? Oh,
No, I mean, so yeah, they do bring a network, including things like home inspectors, contractors, property managers, perhaps photographers and stagers. Some realtors, they themselves are quite experienced
mhm.
photographers and stagers, um, so you won't even need to pay someone separate. Um, but yeah, I think a lot of this comes down to what you've mentioned several times now, Denny, and is saving time. Delegating your tasks to other people, especially people who are subject matter experts like realtors, there's a real value there. So,
Right,
then the question then becomes, is the trade-off worth it, right? Like, is the money that I'm paying this person worth the amount of time that they are saving me, and potentially the higher sales price that they can earn me in
right,
selling this property? And by the way, keep in mind that realtors get paid by the seller. Both the buyer's agent and the listing agent, the seller's agent, they both get paid by the seller. So
right,
as a buyer, it really doesn't cost you anything to use a realtor. We're really just talking about on the selling side. Should you shell out the money for a listing agent? And you will, by the way, still have to pay the buyer's agent in many cases. That's
yeah.
that's something that you'll typically have to negotiate with the buyer's agent. You know, so just bear
And
that
a
in
lot
mind.
of inexperienced buyers are going to want a buyer's agent, just because a lot of them don't know the process. So,
Yeah,
yeah. I like what Christina said. I think for an out-of-state investor, real estate agents are super helpful, and that is so true on so many levels.
no
Um,
question. Yeah,
yeah,
you need a local expert, both a market expert, and you just need local boots on the ground when you own properties long distance. So, someone needs to be able to walk through the property and take pictures of it and, inspect damage and, all of these sorts of things that you can't do yourself if you are not there physically.
right. And little things like I recently had a listing and I was walking through it and they had a kids room, and the kids room looked pretty good, but it was just full of just clutter, and it made it look smaller. So, I mean, just a small little, I mean, and they were working on all these other areas and painting and everything else, but they were neglecting to see that. So a realtor sometimes can have an eye, because when you're looking at so many homes,
Fresh eyes,
right.
stuff
Um,
that you won't necessarily notice when you're too close to it.
no, not at all. Um, Negotiation, realtors definitely have that experience. They're doing it all the time. They know, little tricks of the trade. So that's helpful as well. Um,
And the paperwork in general. I mean, drawing up the sales contracts. Although I guess that's more done by the buyer's agent rather than the listing agent, right, Denny? Drawing up the sales
yes,
contract.
it is, but it also, as a selling agent, you also need to keep track of the timelines. You want to make sure that their mortgage commitment, if that's a factor, is in on time, the appraisals in on time, the inspections in on time. And, you miss one of those dates, it can put the contract out of, can't think of the word, but it could null the contract basically.
Right,
So,
because time is of the essence with real estate contracts, right?
right, right, big time.
But the
Um,
seller's agent also reviews the legal contract and will know what to look for, buried in all that legalese. I mean, real estate
right.
contracts tend to be, um, you know, 50, 60, 70 pages long by the time you add in all of the addenda and disclosures. So, it's really easy for lay people to miss some of those like buried things in the contract, buried clauses that actually have a really big impact on your ability to sell on time. There may be contingencies buried in there that let the buyer escape the contract without losing their earnest money deposit, which obviously costs you that money.
Mm,
So a realtor can help spot those things for you. By the way, Darren Stewart says, in my humble opinion, found that there is a 20-80 rule with realtors, that 20% of realtors are good to great, and the rest are just there for the commission. I have had similar experiences, Darren, that
yes,
some realtors are really sharp and they know their market inside and out. They have great networks of experts, but there are a lot of
sorry.
part-time realtors. You know, uh, not to use a stereotype, but there's a lot of like the part-time mom realtors that, um, they think that they can. Oh, I'll just do it on my own schedule, and but that's not how you get to be good at any field.
Mm-mm.
I mean, the best realtors are out there hustling all day, every day, and really know what they're doing in that market and are doing dozens of deals all the time. Um, Christina says there is a boom of wholesalers, but the issue with them is that there are no rules for them. As real estate agents, they follow ethical procedures and
Yes,
rules and laws. Yeah, so realtors can um, keep real estate deals ordered, especially if you end up working with a wholesaler or people who are um, in the industry and trying to kind of just move fast and loose on a deal. Realtors can provide some guardrails there on those deals and make sure that everything stays
right.
above board and within your or with your interests in mind. So
Which is good because things, like Brian said, those contracts are ridiculous. I mean, they're really long, and most people just they don't really read them. They go right through them, and there's a lot of written in things like in Pennsylvania at the very end is where everybody writes in everything. And by the time you're going to that part, a lot of people don't even really look at that, and those are the important parts.
your
So a
eyes have
realtor
glazed
knows,
over by that point.
yeah. So these are things that realtors can help you with. It's worth a lot more money sometimes than you think. But yeah,
No,
I always do that. I always interrupt you, but
no.
anyway.
Well, so before we jump into some of the advantages of going for sale by owner, are there any other advantages to using a realtor that you want to make sure that people are aware of before they, go realtor free?
Well, I think we pretty much touched all the bases. I mean, just sometimes you have a team. That's something else that is good to keep. I work in a team, and it's very good because now you don't just have one person, you have a whole slew of people helping you, and you're not going to get that on just your own. So,
Right. So if your lead realtor is not available, for example, for showings or to handle incoming contract offers, there's someone else on the team that will step in and do the showings or review the offers and so forth. Um,
right.
and one other point about realtors is that so yeah, we talked about how they handle the paperwork. I actually totally spaced out what I was going to say. My last point about realtors, but yeah, I think we basically covered it. That they'll spot stuff that you. Oh, I know what I was going to say about how they have a good realtors in any given market, especially realtors who work heavily with investors. They often have an entire network of local investors that they can put deals out there to. And often you'll have offers within a couple hours of even running the idea past a realtor. We only have to list it on the market. you just contact the realtor who is active, working in that market and working with investors, and they'll say, I work with the perfect person for this. Let me make 2 phone calls and I bet we'll have a buyer. They'll call up their investor, say, look, I've got this exact kind of deal that you love. Um, what are your thoughts on it? And boom, you can have your sale done just like that. So that
Yeah,
network is just
absolutely.
incredibly valuable.
Big time.
All right, so Deni, what are some of the advantages of for sale by owner?
Well, I mean, obviously, the top one would be you're going to
Saving money.
save a whole lot of money. I mean, realtors' fees also are negotiable, and a lot of people don't realize that, but they are. The like ask there. I know the average is 6 to 7%, but often I've gone 5%. And some people will do it even for less. So you have to ask, you have to negotiate that. Um, you also have to keep in mind you're going to get what you pay for, so you don't want to, have somebody popping in there for real cheap and then figure, oh well, I don't have to do that much work because they really got me down on the price. But it's a lot of money. So on a $250,000 home, you're looking at 12,500 on up in your savings there. Um, so you got to weigh out your time and that amount of money. Like, is it worth it? And the aggravation factor. I always say you got to add in an aggravation factor, because dealing with buyers and and mortgage companies and appraisers is aggravating. Um,
Yeah, I mean, you have to take care of all those tasks that the realtor will be doing for you, staying on top of all the moving parts in the deal, making sure that the buyer is on top of things, which they often aren't, and they need to be babysat basically. Con-
right,
Contacting the lenders, was the appraisal done? I mean, all of these things. Was the home inspection done? So, I mean, you have to babysit these deals if you're not going to pay someone else to do it for you. Um, Not to
right,
mention all the things like showing properties and getting all the professional photos taken and the listings professionally written and all of these things that a realtor can do for you. And Christina made a good point that they can help you negotiate, keep things objective. Um,
right.
so, all right, back to advantages of for sale by owner.
You have a better hands-on of what's going on, because sometimes you let it go, you give it to the realtor, and sometimes they can get busy, so they don't keep as in contact. Where when you're doing your own thing, you know exactly what's going on and when it's going on. And this is definitely, obviously, a big one. You can sell it or rent them for less money. Now, with that being said, in the kind of market we're in now, sometimes having a realtor because you're getting a whole network of people who are looking for that type of home, and hence we have the bidding wars. I think it's less apt to have a bidding war when you're selling it on your own, or at least with enough people that will spark up the price.
So you're saying when you list a property for sale by owner, you have more wiggle room on price since you are saving money on the realtor, right?
Right,
You have more wiggle room because your net walk away price. So in a buyer's market, that can be very advantageous. In a seller's market like we're in right now, um, it's less of a factor, like you said. But also to your point, in a seller's market, a realtor can help set you up for a bidding war, right? I mean, they know exactly how to respond to different um, potential buyers who show a little bit of interest but haven't actually made an offer, to spark a bidding war that you
hmm
as an investor or as a homeowner seller, that you probably don't know the right ways to kind of poke and prod and nudge these potential buyers to get multiple offers on the table and then leverage all those offers against each other to create a bidding war. There is a little bit of finesse there, and that
right,
that finesse comes with experience, right? So
absolutely. And you can list your property. See, we have realtor.com and Zillow and the Facebook marketplace. I mean, just about all over the place that you can pay. It's like $99 you can pay to list on the MLS.
is it that cheap? $99?
Mm-hmm.
Wow,
95, 99,
that's pretty
somewhere.
cheap.
Yeah. It used to be a lot more, but I guess things are changing out there.
Disruptive technology. All right. So,
Um,
bottom line, should people hire a realtor in today's world? Should experienced real estate investors hire a realtor in today's world to sell their investment properties?
well, I think you're asking me, and I'm a realtor, so I'm going to say no. Hire a realtor. It's like, would you go to court without an attorney? You know,
Small
if it
claims
was
court? Yes.
right, maybe so. But
A
if you're
huge class
dealing,
action lawsuit? No.
no. I think in a seller's market, you definitely want to have a realtor. I think there's a lot of benefits to it. Um, you know, but I think, look, one of the things we're all trying to do is passive, right? We're trying to invest as passively as possible. And like Brian had said earlier, in order to do that, you want to have you want to assemble your network so that you can do that. Otherwise, you're going to be going home at the end of the night because you just dealt with, the purchaser of your property, and they just decided they didn't want it, so now I don't know what I'm going to do, and the whole 9 yards, and it's just a pain in the butt. So I personally like somebody else to handle it for me,
Yeah,
and
there's
that's just
definitely something to be said for delegating to an expert in any subject matter. It saves you time. Now that being said, you can, uh, for certain properties, you can get away with listing it yourself. Like
right.
for example, I have a rental property that I'm in the process of listing, and it's under $100,000 property. If I were local, I would not pay a realtor to do that for me. I'm not local. I'm in Brazil, so I am paying a realtor to take care of it for me. But if I were local, I would probably just do that myself. Like we said earlier. There's that lawyer analogy, right? Like if you are sued, do you need a lawyer? Or if you go to court, do you need a lawyer? Small claims court, no, you really don't need a lawyer. A major lawsuit, you do need a lawyer.
Right.
So, some of it is just contextual as well. Tara says someone in the Facebook group mentioned a real estate auctioneer. Do you guys have any info on that? And they asked why should we not use an auctioneer? I will speak briefly to that, and then Deni, I'm curious to hear your thoughts. So,
Mhm.
auction real estate auctions are very hit or miss. I mean, I've seen properties go for a very strong price at auctions, a price that you would be very happy to have gotten from a realtor. I've also seen properties go for a fraction of their real value at auction. Just depends on who shows up that day and who bids. And I've been to auctions where there were a series of very, very similar properties that were all sold off independently.
Mhm.
And the first one went really low because everyone was a little nervous about bidding, or people were just kind of feeling out the auction. So the first one went for a really low price, and then all the rest of them went for pretty strong prices. As people felt more comfortable with the process at that particular auction. And these were all very similar properties. So the first person got a really good deal at that auction, and that seller got a really bad deal. And the rest of the sellers came out fine. Um, so it's just hit or miss. Um, and if you can put a reserve price when you auction off a property, but it attracts fewer buyers. So
Right.
again, trade-offs. So Deni, what are your thoughts on auctions?
I think that for somebody who's newly getting involved in that kind of transaction, you need some type of support, because an auction is a whole different world, pretty much. And the auctioneer doesn't really take the place of a realtor per se. It's more of the process, wouldn't you say, Brian?
Well, they do. The auctioneer does market it for you, but and in today's world, they typically list it on the MLS as well. Um, leading up to the auction to build anticipation and to get some audience attention on it. Um, I've never sold a property at auction. I have bought properties at auction, so I'm not as familiar with the auctioning process on the seller side as I am on the buyer side. I've bought properties at auction, but never sold them at auction. So uh, I can't speak firsthand to the process of selling a property at auction.
Yeah, I have to say that I have not had too much to do with with the auction process. I am looking at a property right now that's got a lot of land that's going for auction. So I'm looking into it, but yeah, I don't know a whole lot either, but it's something maybe to explore. So that's a good topic.
So, Deni, any last thoughts about hiring a realtor versus not hiring a realtor before we call this episode complete?
I think the biggest thing here is if you're a beginner in this whole thing, in the process, that I would have a professional. So I would hire a realtor. If you're somebody who's been around the block a couple times, you feel like you can do it yourself, you have the time, then you have to weigh it out and decide, should I or shouldn't I? There's also, I'm pretty sure they do it in all states. Pennsylvania has what's called a transactional realtor agent. And that's somebody who will just facilitate the sale for you. So you don't pay as high. It's usually a flat fee or like 1% or 2% compared to the larger amount. So that might be another option to seek out.
Okay, that's a good tip. I've never heard of that before. Maybe it's just a Pennsylvania thing. Maybe it's not. I don't know. So you guys, we would really appreciate it if you left us some positive reviews, both on our Facebook page or on sites like SiteJabber, and for the podcast itself on platforms like iTunes, Stitcher, wherever you listen to your podcasts. On that note, we're going to wrap things up today. We will see you next Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. And as always, stay in touch with us. Let us know what you want to hear about. This podcast is about you guys. It's not about us. So
absolutely,
let us know what you want to hear about, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
Have a great day.
Bye now.